Chapter 13. Kassi. As soon as the bell rang, I hightailed my butt out of the school parking lot as fast as I could. I was 10 minutes late picking up Aries. I sighed in relief when I saw his school up ahead and thanked God for making his school so close to mine. I parked and ran to his classroom, hoping that he wasn't alone and scared. When I finally arrived, I paused in disbelief and watched through the door window as my younger, normally shy, brother was talking to a girl classmate excitedly. He must have been telling her a story because he was waving his hands around wildly and talking fast. The girl was fascinated and I saw them both giggle when Aries finished his story. I was so engrossed with watching them that when a throat cleared from behind me, I nearly jumped out of my own skin. I quickly turned around and was met with an older woman giving me a welcoming smile. Aries' teacher, isn't it adorable? They seem to be getting along quite nicely if I do say so myself. I'm sorry, I said sheepishly, I'm just not used to him adjusting this fast. The woman gave me a sympathetic smile. It's alright, hon, I know how it is. I was an army brat once and remember moving around constantly too. I gave her a forced smile. Oh no, nothing like that. My mother is a freelance artist and is constantly looking for new inspiration. She thinks by traveling to new places allows her to connect to nature. I guess being her kids, we get to connect with nature too. I guess. The woman smiled again. That's a neat way to think about life. She motioned for me to follow her. You're Aries' sister, aren't you? Yes, I followed her fast paces. How is he doing, by the way? Any trouble? She paused outside the classroom and shook her head. Aries is the sweetest little boy I have ever met. Very helpful and very mature for his age. I beamed so. He did fine today. She nodded at first. He was hesitant to interact with the other children until Madison came to play with him. After that, he was fine. I heaved a sigh of relief and the weight from my shoulders loosened a bit. Thank you. I really appreciate you staying after school with him. I promise I won't be late again. She waved my concern away. Don't apologize, sweetie. It's my job to watch these beautiful children. I smiled and opened the classroom door. When Aries saw me, his face lit up and he ran to me. I caught him halfway and lifted him up in the air. How's my favorite brother? He giggled. I'm your only brother, sissy. I laughed and put him down. True. Now go get your stuff and say goodbye to your friend. He ran to his desk and grabbed his backpack before waving to the girl. Bye, friend. She giggled and blushed. Bye, friend. He ran to the door and I scolded him. Don't be rude, Aries. Say goodbye to your teacher also. He blushed and mumbled his goodbye. I laughed and followed him outside. Since he was underweight and extremely small for his age, I put him in his toddler seat. I hopped into the driver's seat and turned around to face him. How was your day, buddy? He beamed. It was good, sissy. I made a new friend. Oh, really? I turned back and started the car. Was she nice? The best, sissy. He started talking about his day and I listened to him intently. I gave the appropriate head nod or hum whenever he asked me a question or stated something. When he was done with his story and the light turned red, I looked at him through the rearview window. That's great, buddy. I'm glad you found a friend. Now what do you want for dinner? He paused and looked at me. Spaghetti. I laughed and then pulled over before quickly typing in local restaurants that served spaghetti. There was one in town that had 5 stars, so I quickly plugged the coordinates into my phone before turning back onto the road. After 5 minutes of silence, Aries asked me an interesting question. Sissy, are we going to be eating with Grandpa? I stayed silent. I honestly didn't know what to say. Aries was such a loving person that I couldn't tell him. Chapter 14. Rhys. I was sitting in my office, going through the PAC's daily reports when a guard bursted through the door in a panic. Alpha, come quick. I followed him quickly and he led me to the infirmary. I glanced at him warily. What is the meaning of this? He shook his head. Alpha, I can't explain. Doc said it was imperative that I came to collect you. I nodded and went inside the infirmary. As soon as I saw who was lying on the beds, I started to get angry. DOC, I yelled for our PAC doctor, Dr. Cole. Where are you? The doctor came out from behind the medicine station with a strained look on his face. Hello, Alpha. What is this? I demanded as I saw my 4 friends unconscious on the hospital beds. What happened? He motioned for me to come closer before picking up the left hand of the closest person to us, which happened to be Mia. He showed me Mia's wrist and my eyes widened. She had 3 deep gashes on her wrist, gashes that should have healed already because of her full-blooded wolf genes. Not only did she have the deep gashes, she also had a patch of burned flesh on her cuts. Who did this? I asked eerily. Everly would have looked like they were sleeping if not for their pale and sweaty faces. Sean by far looked the worse. Since he was human, it took longer for him to heal. In all honesty, it looked like he wouldn't last through the night. Yes, Alpha, they all have this. A pack member saw them slumped together on the ground outside the pack house and brought them, and he shifted on his feet. I've never seen anything like this, Alpha. Not in my 37 years of experience of being the pack doctor. You have no idea what's causing this? Was there a breach? An attack? I asked, and he shook his head. I highly doubt it was an attack, Alpha. No one would be able to take on the beta, his mate, and the third at the same time. It would have been a death wish. I ran a hand through my hair. Has their families been notified? He nodded. They're waiting in the waiting room for you, Alpha. This time I nodded before I began pacing. 4 heart monitors were beeping in a steady rhythm, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of uneasiness for my best friends. I decided that I couldn't handle this situation alone. I needed some reinforcements. I plucked my phone from my back pocket and dialed my parents. Rhys? Honey, are you okay? She asked anxiously. Mom, I need you and Dad to come to the infirmary right away. It's important. She agreed before hanging up. I waited 10 minutes before they arrived. When they saw all 4 of my best friends on the beds, they tensed. What is the meaning of this? My dad asked gruffly. What's wrong with them? I gave them a brief gist of what Doc told me before showing them my friends' wrists. When my mother saw them, she burst into tears. Mom? I asked, panicked. What's wrong? Have you seen this before? Please tell me what's going on. She clung to my father and he gave me a worried look. We have seen this before, son, but only once. What is it? Were they attacked? Poisoned? What's happening to them? They're going to be fine, Rhys' mom sniffled. They're just preparing for the next stage. What? My eyes widened. What are you talking about? They changed years ago. She doesn't mean the wolf change, Rhys' dad said. Their bodies are adjusting to their new roles as protectors. What the hell are protectors? I gritted my teeth. And why haven't you told me this before? I'm tired of being left in the dark regarding my pack. Dad gave me the stink eye. Watch your tone, he scolded. We didn't tell you before because we didn't think you needed to know. He looked at my mom. The war is getting bad. Worse than we imagined. Mom continued to sniffle. Minnie. I was losing patience and hated that I didn't know anything at all. Chapter 15. Kassi. When I arrived in my English class, I was greeted with the empty seats of my new friends. With all 5 of them gone, the classroom was much more spacious and quieter than it was yesterday. The bell rang and I scurried to my seat quickly as my English teacher started his lesson. Please God, I thought, I hope I didn't scare them off. By the time that the end of the day rolled around, I was exhausted physically and mentally, mainly because of 2 reasons. Those reasons being, A, Marcy, the girl that was all over Rhys yesterday, was a total witch, and B, because I was lost in all my classes today. Every single class felt like the teacher was speaking a different language. Every chance she got, Marcy kept throwing snide remarks at me. First it started with passing comments in the hallway, but as the day continued, her and her group of friends would always mutter things under their breaths or whisper to each other as soon as I walked by. Now if I was back home in New York and people were talking about me behind my back, I wouldn't have minded asking them what their problem was, but here, for some reason, the little voice in my head was telling me not to start problems with them just yet. It's not because I was a coward, far from it. I think it was because if I did have a fight with those girls, my warden, aka grandfather, would have a coronary and probably kick us out. I knew I could handle myself. Years of getting in trouble at my old school proved that, but I was smart enough to know that if my grandfather kicked us, Aries would have an unstable life, and that could not happen. I even tried to call my mom at lunch to update her about my situation and how we're adjusting, but my call just kept going to voicemail. Damn it, Ma, I huffed. Pick up your phone. As soon as that final bell rang, I jumped in my car, picked up Aries from school, grabbed some dinner and headed home. When we got home I noticed that my grandfather's truck was here, but he was nowhere to be found in the house. Sissy, Aries said after he ate, can I watch some cartoons? Sure, I said, if you're finished with all your homework. He beamed. I finished it at school. Mrs. Torres checked it too. I laughed and ruffled his hair. Okay buddy, go ahead and watch some TV. If you need me, I'll be in my room. He ran excitedly to his room and I heard his TV turn on. I quickly cleaned up, grabbed my bag, and then hightailed my lazy butt to my room to get started on the mountain I call homework. Halfway through my economics homework, I heard a creak from the upstairs attic. An attic that happened to be right above my room. An empty attic. I paused and waited to see if there was another creak, and this time, a thump sounded from above me. Being the moron that I am, I decided to investigate. I quietly tiptoed to the door that connected Aries' room to mine to see if he was being nosy and sticking his nose where it shouldn't be. When I found that he was passed out on his bed with cookie crumbs on his face and snoring, I ruled him out as a suspect. Now, beside from being a professional moron, I am also a detective. I also checked to see if my grandfather's car was here. It wasn't. I gulped. If Aries is sleeping and our grandfather is gone, then that leaves. Hell no, I grumbled. I don't deal with ghosts. Normally, I wasn't a believer in all that supernatural mumbo-jumbo, but after living in this house filled with dead and stuffed things, every little sound makes me jump. Wouldn't you freak out if you felt the dead eyes of an animal followed your every move every time you stepped into the house? I went into the hallway and the thumping continued, but this time, it was coming from the door at the end of the hall that lead up into the attic. Now, I usually laughed at those stupid girls in movies that run towards the creepy sound, but now I've become one of those girls. Ironic, huh?